calls towards the truth will be tried and they will be tested. That's why we always mention that if you want to see whether the da'wah of a person is sound and correct, then look if he has any adversaries and look if he faces any opposition. If you're a teacher, barakallahu feek, and you're teaching people Islam and you find no aversion in your call, then sometimes you must question yourself. Because the nature of the call is that you must enjoin the good and you must forbid the evil. And if you're going to forbid the evil, you're going to step on people's toes. And you step on people's toes, people are not going to like you. So having patience upon what you believe is something very, very important. And the Prophet also himself was ridiculed. He was called Sahirun aw Majnoon. He was called a sorcerer. And he was called a madman. The Prophet also was called a kahin. He was called a fortune teller. So if this was Allah Azza wa Jal's chosen servant, that Allah Azza wa Jal chose to deliver his final message, if the harm of the people reached him and he was ridiculed, then what do we think about those who are lesser than them? Even if they are people of virtue and people of character, just because of the fact that you upkeep the sunnah, you are going to be ridiculed. So we say to the brother that what is becoming upon you is to be steadfast upon what you believe and not to waver, and that to know that if you are upon this path of the Quran and the Sunnah, according to the understanding of the Salaf, if you are upon Salafiyah, you will face aversion and difficulty in your call and in your practice. This is the reality. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. The next question is the question concerning what is the ruling of medical aid in the case of not being able to afford good health care, and in the case that the average Muslim cannot afford good health care without medical aid, meaning is it needed if the person wants good quality health care? So all of the Kibar al-Ulama, the major scholars of this ummah, the likes of Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, the likes of Ibn Baz, Rahimah Ta'ala, and the likes of Ibn Uthaymeen, Rahimah Ta'ala, they say in principle, Ta'minu Sihi, which is medical aid, they say it is haram. Why? Because it is a type of maysir. We call it games of chance. It's a type of gambling, right? Why? Because you're putting something in, and if, for example, you are trialed by way of illness and you have to go for an operation, perhaps you just started the medical aid and now you became sick. You put perhaps in, like, let's say, every month 3,000. In the third month, Allah protect you, you become sick. The operation costs 120,000 rand. So what happened in this instance? You got more out than what you put in. And this, from this angle, it is a type of gambling. So in principle, it is haram. However, Shaykh Sa'd al-Khazlan, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, who is known for Iqtisad al-Islamiyah, who is known for Islamic finance matters, he mentioned that Ta'meen insurance of two types. The first being Ta'meen, which is based on a type of commerce. So meaning you're putting money in and you're paying the insurance, and this is agreement between you two. This type of insurance is the one that the scholars prohibited. The other model of insurance is Ta'meen, which is based upon a takaful system. Where people put money into an investment, right? And the agreement between them is that we will pay money every month into this account, and all of the people who enter into the contract say that if an issue comes up, you'll be able to benefit from it. So this is an insurance which is based upon a takaful system, meaning a group of people come together and they say, okay, each and every single month we're going to give 1,000 rand. Now,
So in the event a person becomes ill, he can get a payout. This is permissible. And we mentioned that the Lajnat Da'ima permitted it, as well as the Majma al-Fiqh al-Islami, the Islamic Fiqh Council, they permitted it. So there's two models. The one is where you simply put in, and you are the only one who experiences loss. Because you put it in, and you might never ever access it. The other example is where everyone shares
in the risk, for example. So this type is permissible. And he mentioned that in the event you live in a country where ta'min al-sihi, medical aid, is something which is ijbari, meaning the government forces it upon you, he says in this instance it becomes permissible. In this instance it becomes permissible. So some people might extend this also to you work in a company and the company forces it upon you. Right? He mentions if this is the case also, in that instance also, the sin is upon the one who enforced it. The sin is upon the one who enforced it. And he gave another example. And he said, in the instance, for example, a company gives you an insurance policy as a gift, and they bear the burden of responsibility of payment for it. He says in this instance, it takes the ruling of a hibah, a gift, and in this instance it is permissible. But the default rule of insurance, it is haram, unless you follow the model which is based upon the takaful system. And we're not saying simply you must first look at the model of what it is based upon. Now, is it based upon sound Islamic principles in terms of trade, or is it not? So Shaykh Hatlan says that insurance, it is prohibited upon the grounds, firstly, that it is bay'ul gharar, right? And this means it is a type of trade which is very volatile. Type number one. He said also, when you enter into the contract, there's a type of jahala, meaning it's not entirely known what you're getting into. Type because interest rates fluctuate and likewise your premiums go up and down. So from this angle he says it is haram, but if it follows the Islamic model of insurance, then it is permissible, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Even though some scholars locally say that this is a necessity. So you cannot get good healthcare without having medical insurance, so it's a necessity. Necessity must be defined. Because sometimes a person goes through this here, and then he just happens to get the best of doctors, right, by the qada and qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal. So Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. We won't say it's an issue of necessity, but this is the fatwa from Shaykh Sa'd al-Hatlan, Hafidhullah Ta'ala. The next issue which comes up is the questioner asks that this is the matter of having folded or rolled up clothes whilst in the prayer. Say an individual wears a jersey or pants underneath a thobe for warmth or modesty, but they fold or roll it so it does not drag or look untidy. Does this count as folded or rolled up clothes, even if they are underneath a thobe? So the issue concerning praying up or praying in garments which are rolled up, there is a hadith on the topic. The hadith wherein the Prophet said that I was commanded to prostrate on 7 bones. And the Prophet also made these body parts down. And then the Prophet said, and I was forbidden to fold back hair and clothing. And this hadith is found in Sahih Muslim. So most scholars have said that this prohibition, it is absolute. The Prophet said, I was commanded to pray upon 7 bones. And then he said, I was forbidden to fold back hair and clothing. So this means that when the person prays, if he has long hair, he can't tie his hair up. Naam. And also you can't roll your sleeves up. likewise your pants. Tayyib, likewise your pants. And Imam Nawawi said, rahimahullah ta'ala, that the scholars have agreed upon the prohibition of praying while someone has his garment folded over or sleeves rolled up or the likeness of that, he said. And Ibn Khuzaymah said, he entitled a chapter in his Sahih compilation, and he made a chapter heading saying, the stern warning, rebuke and reprimand against rolling up or folding over clothing. Example, the shirt, sleeves of the shirt, or your pants. Right? So the hadith on the topic is clear, and the scholars have differed between tahrim, prohibition, and it being makruh. Some scholars made the differentiation to say that if the person was busy with some type of work wherein he rolled his sleeves up and he came like that to the prayer, la ba'asa bidhalik, there's no issues with this. And some scholars took the hadith in the general sense, that it is prohibited to roll up the sleeves before the prayer, outside of salah, but to specifically roll it up for the prayer, it is haram. It is haram. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. The next question. One more clarification with regards to this is that if the person prays in this condition, is his prayer invalid? His prayer is not invalid. Type why? Because the prohibition is not in relation to the prayer specifically. Right? But the prohibition is with regards to an action of the prayer, but not specifically the prayer. So the person will be sinful, but the prayer will be valid. The prayer will be valid. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. The next issue, and this is an important question which was posed, is the question concerning how should we interact with Muslims whom we believe are not upon the Sunnah, or not from Ahlus Sunnah, such as some Sufis and others within the Cape Town Muslim community. How do we balance good character, da'wah, and remaining firm upon the Sunnah? And this is a very, very important question to clarify, because sometimes we find that people are between two extremes. The one extreme is we take everyone out of the Sunnah, and the other extreme is we include everyone in the Sunnah. So, Shaykh Muhammad al-Tahiri, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, a scholar from Kuwait, he answered the specific question. And he said that first it must be understood that the Ahlul Bid'ah, the people of innovation, are of two types. Firstly, the Awam from amongst them. And he gave the example, the laity from amongst the Ahlul Bid'ah. That these people, they are upon innovation, but he says they don't know their forearms from their wrist. Meaning they can't distinguish, they don't have knowledge to ascertain what is correct and what is incorrect. So he says with regards to these individuals, they are interacted with gentleness and leniency. Why? With the hope that they will be guided. And this is important, that sometimes people are not exposed to the Sunnah, and simply because they are upon a certain innovation, we show them a type of harshness. So here Shaykh Muhammad al-Tahiri says that he interacts with them with gentleness and leniency. Because the Prophet Muhammad said that gentleness, rifq, is not found within something except that it adorns it. So you want the person to come to the Sunnah, but you want to show them harshness. Harshness in its respective place. But if they don't have knowledge, then you treat them with kindness. And he cites as a proof the fact that the Prophet ﷺ was aware of the munafiqeen in Medina, but he treated them with gentleness and leniency. Why? For the hope that they would come to Islam. And so he says that if they are your neighbors, then they will have a neighborly right. They're upon innovation, but they're your neighbors, they will have a neighborly right. That means if someone from their family or their household passes away, can we simply say, you're not going to attend the janazah because of Ahlul Bid'ah? No, you can attend. And if they are your partners in business, they have a right with regard to business. So you're not going to be like, I'm going to boycott him. I'm not going to talk to him at work, and the likes of this. So he says they have a right. However, he does say, whilst you must still be cautious from the innovation. You must still practice caution with regards to the innovation. So meaning, if they're your neighbor and they invite you to a 7 nights, must you attend? No, because that is a call towards sin. So in this instance, you will not give them the right of responding to an invitation. And he mentions وَالدَّعْوَةُ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, and that you call them in a good manner. So you want them to come towards the sunnah, then show them kindness, show them respect, and show them the sunnah. And he says وَعَدَمُ السُّكُوتِ, whilst not remaining silent from the falsehood that they are upon. So it's a balance. And he says the second type is the du'at, the figureheads, the callers towards innovation. Those who are upon innovation and they have knowledge. And they also say they have knowledge of the opposite side's proofs. How are they dealt with? He says it is an obligation upon the people of knowledge to refute them. That refuting the people of innovation is a wajib in wajibati deen. It's an obligation from amongst the obligations of the religion. Why? Because it falls under the guise and the premise of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. That you are the best of nations taken out for the guidance of mankind. You enjoin all that which is good and you forbid the evil. And you believe in Allah. So this is part of forbidding the evil. That someone within the community who has knowledge must establish refutations upon the people of innovation and clarify the innovation to the general people. And he mentions, as for you, O Muslim, he says, tanha anhu. As for you, O Muslim, he says, do not lend your ear to the people of innovation, for the fear that their shubuhat, their doubts, will settle upon your heart. And he says that the hearts are da'ifa, the hearts are weak, and the hearts become affected. So he says, you don't listen to them, and he gives the example of the story that we mentioned many weeks ago of Imran ibn Hitan, who was from amongst the Tabi'in, and he was from amongst the Ahlul Hadith, and he was a person of knowledge. And in fact, he narrates in Bukhari and Muslim. But the story of Imran ibn Hitan is one of how you become influenced. And the story revolved around the fact that he was interested in a lady. But they said he had a repulsive look. And this lady, she was one of the figureheads of the Khawarij. And they are an extreme sect, the Khawarij. And he married her. And he married her and he said he was going to change her. Right? But in the end, he lost his entire religion and nothing remained with him of knowledge. Why? Because of the concept that the companion draws you. And who draws you the most is the person that you live with closely. It's either you are going to influence or become influenced. Now, so in the end, Imran ibn Hitan, he ended up becoming a Khariji. Why? Because he was influenced by the ideology and the thought. And so this clarifies what the Shaykh means here, where he says that you be cautious from the figures of innovation. And you don't, lend your ear to them. Shaykh Sulaiman Ruhaili adds other details to this exact same question. And he says that with regards to boycotting the figures of innovation, then you must look at the circumstance. You must look at the time. You must look at the circumstance and you must look at the time. So he says, if you're in a place where the sunnah is strong, then you boycott them. Right? You don't give them the salam, you don't give them the haqq, etc. But he says, if you are in a place where the sunnah is weak and the people are ostracized, and if you warn out against them, it could lead to more repercussions for you. He says, in this instance, you don't do it. So the maslahah must be looked at. The benefit of warning against them must be looked at. But in principle, we say you must warn against them. And he says that in the event where you end up boycotting the laity, the general masses who are upon innovation, like minor innovations, he says you will end up alone. And you will be the one who is boycotted. Naam. But as for our context, well, alhamdulillah, the sunnah is clear, and the sunnah is growing, and the sunnah is becoming strong. Well, alhamdulillah. So that answers the question concerning how we deal with the people of innovation from amongst the awam. Because this question comes up a lot. We have family members, sometimes a youngster learns the sunnah, and now he says, I live in a house and my parents are upon innovation. Must I boycott them? If they give me salam, must I not give them salam? Must I give them the cold shoulder? La, how can you do this? It's not practical. And it's not from wisdom. So, Shaykh Muhammad Hisham al-Tahiri answered the question in a beautiful way, and he summarized it for us, walhamdulillah. The next question which comes up is, the question says, I'm 35, and she's a female, wanting to marry a Salafi man. So we say to the sister, she can contact me after the class. Because I'll put her in touch with someone, inshallah. Now, the sister says she wants to marry a Salafi man. You married, brother? Huh? Okay, didn't see her ring, So, she says, I've had an interest from men over the years, but not Salafis. I.e., she says, the men who are interested in celebrate birthdays and are into Sufi dhikr groups. So I have never married because of this. It is a deal breaker for me. Is there any way Tayibah can assist me? If not, please keep me in your du'as. So we first say, may Allah Azza wa Jal sustain you with a pious husband who is firm upon his religion, has a sound creed, and is of good character. Ameen. So this question was posed also in one of our first segments, and it was posed by a male concerning marrying a Salafi, yani lady. So this is the important criterion for marriage. Why the person has religion. Because the hadith of the Prophet says that if somebody proposes to you, إذا أتاكم من ترضون خلقه ودينه فزوجوه. That if someone comes to you and they ask for your daughter's hand in marriage, and you are pleased with his khuluq, with his character, and his deen, the Prophet gave a command, he said, فَزَوِّجُوهُ. Then marry off your daughter to this man. And the Prophet said, إِلَّا تَفْعَلُ تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ عَرِيدٌ. The Prophet said that if you fail to do this, then there will be lots of tribulations upon the earth and widespread corruption. And this is the reality of not marrying off your daughters, because it would lead to zina and the likes of this. So, choosing a pious spouse is of utmost importance. And the Prophet also gave the criteria that the person must have good character and he must have religion. And the most important aspect of religion is your creed. It is your aqidah. It is your beliefs. Because this is the foundation of everything. If the person's beliefs is correct, it is expected that the person should be a good husband. However, all of these things must be looked at. Right? So the first criterion is that you must go for somebody who has a sound creed. Yani a Salafi. And you must also look at the character. Because sometimes from experience, we find that people are firm upon the Sunnah, but then their character is flawed. Well, they're firm upon the Sunnah, but then in the house, it's a completely different situation. He doesn't have layin fil kalam. He doesn't have like gentleness in his speech. He doesn't know how to treat his household. For example, he has a sound creed, but he doesn't nafaqah. Doesn't provide for the household. So then where is your aqidah? So all of these matters should be looked at. The person's religion, look at his aqidah. And then you look at his character. And the Prophet ﷺ, who we claim to follow, was the best to his family. He said, خيركم خيركم لأهلي. The best of you are those who are the best to his household and his family. And he said, وأنا خيركم لأهلي. And I am the best of you to my household. So the Prophet is the example not just in aqidah or ibadah, but also in akhlaq. And this is sometimes where us as Salafis, we fall short. And we have to say this. This is the reality. So all of these matters should be looked at. Also, the fact that can he sustain a marriage? You know, is he somebody who is known to work? Can he nafaqa you? Because the Prophet said, Sallallahu in this youth, and he said, oh, gathering of youth, whomsoever from amongst you is able to upkeep a marriage and to pay the mahr, falyatazawwaj. He must get married. So the Prophet gave the command to those who are able to upkeep a marriage. And a very essential component of upkeeping a marriage is nafaqa. So does the person work? Does he have a job? Does he make effort? This must also be looked at. So with regards to a lady, we will say it is much more stricter. That the lady must look for a person who ticks the right boxes. And that is that the person must be upon the sunnah. Because a lady is easily influenced. And we see that the hearts are weak. The hearts become affected. As for in the instance where a brother is looking to marry a sister, then we say the condition doesn't necessarily have to be that she must be upon the sunnah, but she must incline towards knowledge. That perhaps in a family, she comes from a family where they are very traditional, but they are not specifically linked to a set methodology. Like they do dhikrs, but they're not Sufis, like full-on Sufis. In this instance, some scholars say that if you can work with that, you can work with that. You with me? But it would be awla that the person finds somebody upon the sunnah, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. So we need to mention the story of Imran ibn Hitan, who became influenced by the lady who he married. And that was the summary of that question. The next question is a very lengthy question, and this question, inshallah, we will pose and we'll refer to our scholars. But it is a question concerning trade, and it is a question concerning tax evasion, right? Tax evasion, that if a person opened a company and he opened sister companies under that company to lessen the burden of tax, is that permissible? This question, bi'idhnillah, it reached us, and we'll ask our teachers, bi'idhnillah, the answer concerning this. Now, I mean, those are the questions which came in, and some others as well. But bi'idhnillah, we will work through them bi'idhnillah in the coming weeks and catch up with all questions which was posed. Naktafi bihadha. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. So previously I asked you about I did a question and you said makruh. You said makruh, but like the fatwa came across now is like, you said you were majority of scholars. it's some like differentiation between the person or the guy walking outside and notice leaves, you came in the masjid and you prayed, no issue. And they said the other prohibition is they should stand, now you don't have to sleep, you don't have to time for the prayer. But Shaykh was good after somebody. Yeah. So to be avoided.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله